throughout all of Northeast Ohio. All of our numbers and sales are actually public information. So one of the things I recommend when you are getting into it with any professional about anything ever is to check out their reviews. Obviously that's a great resource for us nowadays. It also really is an access point to just see the volume and the experience too a little bit. Anyways, so I just wanted to talk about the home buying process steps. The first step is to get in touch with somebody, identify a team, like I said, and talk about your timeline and your goals. So on the back of your folders, if you take a look, there's a yellow sheet on the back of each folder. I would love if you would fill out your first and last name, your email and phone number, and what your current living situation or timeline is. And we'll talk about that again at the end, but I'm going to be collecting those. So I have a folder in here that it's showing, I've got some resources, including Alex's card, there's some home inspectors, some movers, but talking about the steps of home buying, first we talk about how best to get a loan, and you work on your pre-approval in tandem with us understanding kind of where you want to be, identifying a few neighborhoods that you're interested in. Obviously West Park is where I personally live, and I sell a lot of homes here, and you know there's a lot of benefits to being within the city of Cleveland proper versus a suburb, for example. One of the biggest benefits is going to be that tax price point that really helps you have a lower monthly. So depending on where your budget falls, a lot of people try to set their goals for where they want to live, whether it's buying a starter home, maybe your budget isn't going to be as extreme as it might be in the future, or you just want to get into the home buying market and stop paying rent that goes down the tubes. So for that purpose, if you get into a starter home, there's a lot of great options in West Park for that. You know, a lot of people do the 5 to 7 year plan where they're going to build equity by paying it down, and then the hope is also that it's appreciating while it's going up. And then the plan is to then sell it and get into your more forever home later, hopefully with that big equity that you've created, which might be more than the down payment that you have now. You can roll that into your more forever home and hopefully keep your payments close to or not such a big increase because you've put that equity rollover. So that's how a lot of people do the starter home thing, and it's a really good way to get into the market. But the bottom line is with the market, my opinion is just to get in sooner is going to give you your best foothold towards building wealth in the future. So depending on your budget and your circumstances, we'll identify where we're looking, what your needs are. And sometimes people get hung up on stuff like, I need a fence, I have a dog, or I won't live without AC. So say a house doesn't have AC, if it has forced air, like there's vents, you can add an AC machine condenser, and you know that's not a big deal. Or you can add a fence. So like limiting yourself, especially in today's market with low inventory, it's best that we just cast the widest possible net. And then I send you a list of all the listings on the market that are matches for you, as well as anything new that pops on. We send it up to the minute, and stuff that is like secondhand, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, some of these other third-party websites. Their resources are a little bit stale and slow. All the time I'll send listings to clients and then they'll text me a Zillow link and be like, why didn't you send me that one? And I'll be like, I don't know, let me see. And I'll look it up and I'm like, oh, that one sold like 2 weeks ago. So they don't always update their information, and things like Zestimates and stuff like that are so off base because they don't see the inside, they don't see the finishings or what kind of counters you have, and they don't know what updates were made, and they're just really stale and it's not up to date. So if you ever want information about anything, any realtor can pull that for you for free, quick, and that's going to be the most accurate. You know, always a person laying eyes versus an algorithm is going to be more accurate, especially someone who's a local expert. So basically when you call me, you know, firstly I talk about how best to get a loan. I give a few names. These guys are great, this package sounds amazing. But then you get your pre-approval, and then basically through the list of listings I'm sending you, you identify your top 3 or 4, and I really have you vet them hard, like Google Earth them, like maybe even drive by, like let's really dig in, because there is something called buyer fatigue, and there's only X amount of emotional energy that you have before you're like, oh, I'm over this, I'll just settle for anything, and that's not what we want. Our goal is your most ideal outcome, a home that you really love, something that is going to check almost all your boxes, if not all, So that's what we were there to do. So anyways, doing our research before we do the tour and really digging in and editing through those listings is important. But anyways, we'll get out in person, we'll go see the tour. I'll set it up for us. I try to coordinate so we're not zigzagging around town.
Thank you.
Let's see,
Sorry.
there's different availability, so we do our best with that coordination, but basically identify, okay, we're gonna meet at this address and then we're gonna follow house to house from there. I usually recommend maxing out at 3 or 4 per tour only because it starts getting confusing, like which one had the this thing, which one had the that thing, and you just wanna maybe even take notes as we go, I usually recommend. But anyways, after the tour, you know, I fill out feedback, so we talk about what's our feedback on these homes. And then if there's one that, say in the middle of the tour, say we have 2 more houses to see, if we identify that we all loved this one for you, maybe while we're driving to the next house, with your permission, I would discuss, hey, I think we should call the listing agent and just let them know we're still touring, but we love this house and we might be writing an offer. What that tells them is, hey, we're here, we're in the wind. If for some reason they're in the middle of having a conversation or accepting a contract from someone else, they know, wait, these people are maybe writing an offer in a little. So just identifying and moving quickly because of the scarcity of inventory. There's so few listings, there's a lot more people going for each house. So the biggest hallmark of my business is, you know, I work nights and weekends and I move quickly. When you text me, I answer right away. People are like, what do you do? Just sit there and stare at your phone? But right now, the anxiety that I feel in this market is that urgency is so key. And, you know, I am really focused 360 on just getting my clients what they need, and moving quickly as possible is the biggest factor there. And that's one of the things that puts us ahead. So I have a very high batting average of helping my buyers win homes, and part of it is my speed. But another thing is I have other tips and tricks that don't necessarily translate to you just paying more, that help put my people ahead. Number 1, my offers, when we write an offer, it is tight and clean. Every single T is crossed, every I is dotted. There's not a typo, not an unchecked box. It is perfection. I also create a cover sheet that people will ask me, wait, should we write this love letter to the sellers about ourselves and our family and why we want the house? When I'm the listing agent, I don't even present those offers, because I say to my sellers, listen, I'm your bad guy, I'm your buffer. You're here to pick based off numbers. You can read the letters afterwards if you want. And it's up to the sellers, you know, but I say, I don't recommend you read those letters, let's pick off numbers. And most smart listing agents are gonna do the same thing. A lot of them even say no love letters. People just aren't doing that. So, but what I do is I write on my cover sheet, I write a really nice, like, these are the terms, here's what's going on, and here's a little smidge about these great people and how fast and responsible and qualified they are and how fast and quick and I am, and I just really put our best foot forward in that way. There are also a couple other things that you might not be aware of terminology-wise. Does anybody know what earnest money is? Okay, so earnest money is money that is remitted immediately upon acceptance, but it actually just goes towards your closing costs, whether it's your down payment and closing cost. Your funds and documents are due the day before closing typically, and then the closing is typically the next day. So earnest money is a little piece of that that's remitted now, just to let the sellers know you have some skin in the game, and it comes off of your own costs. So that's one of the things that I like to do as big as you can. Now again, if you are having a home inspection, if you choose to not go forward with the house, you're not happy with the results of the home inspection, the house is falling over or whatever, you then would get your earnest money back. If you sign off after the home inspection, there's another sign off before you're really rolling forward. And that's, if you don't have a home inspection, then the contract is the contract and you're rolling forward. If you choose to have a home inspection or other contingencies, there's a sign off saying, we're happy with the home inspection and now we're all in. And if you just backed out for some reason later, never mind, I don't want it, I'm scared, then you don't get your earnest money back. But, you know, all of that is made triple crystal clear before those actions take place and reminded about. But anyways, that's one factor that we can strengthen. It doesn't give them more money, but it just makes your offer look a little stronger. Does anybody know what an escalation clause is? An escalation clause is a side document that may or may not be used. I really only use it in multiples, although oftentimes now we're in multiples. Anyways, it is a document that says the buyers will pay $500 over any competing offer up to X So maybe we put our offer price together, but then maybe we have our like cover your butt absolute highest. But that number, that escalation clause only gets used if they show us the offer that we're beating. So they have to like cross out the names and show the offer that, so there's no BSing us that it went so high when it didn't. Another thing is you have to be aware somebody else could also have an escalation clause. So it's not like a full coverage thing, but it's another little sideline that we can use just to look strong and to like really help. And I think in general, it just shows strength and it shows, you know, negotiation ability and stuff. So again, and not every house is in multiples. That's a misconception right now. A lot of them are, but there's also houses that, you know, you do have a pinch more leverage on, and things are cooling a little bit, I feel. So by the time each of you individually, like I was saying earlier, really starts the process, the market is changing day to day, week to week. So we're gonna talk fresh with that timing for you about what's actually going on in that present time. But right now things are cooling a little bit, and you know, the rates are going up. There is a little bit of a collective what's going on. So in some cases that's creating an urgency where buyers want to hurry before it goes up more. And then in some cases people are like, I don't know, I want to see what's going on. I always tell my clients I don't have a crystal ball. My opinion though, like I said, is the sooner the better. That is my opinion. Even if there's a variation there, ultimately the rates are 100% on rent. So that's a fact. But the bottom line is we have fun. We look at the houses, we tour, you know, we talk together, and usually you'll find that, you know, we're on the same page. While we're going through the houses, I point out things of value. Oh, I love this or that, or just pointing out things that are valuable or beautiful or historic or notable in the house, or there's a crack right there or whatever. I try to do my best to just devil's advocate around the house too. My goal for you is not to just sell you a house. I want to sell you one you love. We're going to see, you know, multiple things. And I always tell my clients, you're going to feel a zing. You're going to feel a special, this is it, something special when we walk into the right one. And everyone's going to feel really good about it. And for the right one, you're going to be able to do what needs to be done and have the confidence to make the offer you need to make. Now, the advice from the loan officers is not always exactly in line with what realtors suggest in terms of what's winning homes in multiples. So while you could do 0 down or 3% down in some cases, when you're in multiples, they're looking at the strongest offers as a whole. So sometimes it makes sense to use the programs and packages that are best for you financially, and sometimes it makes sense to get a house and to do what needs to be done to get the house. So again, individually, they're gonna assess that. I'm gonna talk to you about what we can do to be strong within your ability. You know, nobody wants you to be house poor or maxed out in any way. So, you know, part of the thing that I talk to sometimes with my clients is just because you can doesn't mean you should. If you're pre-approved up to $500,000, it doesn't mean you have to get a house that's that much. Maybe we would find something that's less that you love. So, I mean, again, just finding something that's the right fit, that's gonna hit your goals, and that's gonna serve your purpose, whether your plan is the first time thing or whether your plan is, I'm going for the home I want right now. And, you know, we're gonna just really consult, and we're gonna have our loan officer involved as well, and we're gonna make a plan for you, and it's something you're comfortable with. But for me, especially in this quick market, dilly-dallying and taking a long time is not the way to get it done, but you have to be comfortable and ready. So when you're ready, we start looking, and if we see a house you love, if you know you want it, we write the offer right then. You know, we talk about the terms, and then I do the offer remotely. I have a program called .loop. It's really easy. I send it to your email and you sign electronically. So what happens once we get you under contract is this. If there's a home inspection in play, then you will make arrangements for that. You will remit your earnest money, which is usually electronic. At that point, a title company comes on board, and they're gonna contact you and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from the title company, here's some opening paperwork for you to do. After that, it's really in the lender's court to be working with you, getting your paperwork. What I do is more so make sure that we are falling in line with the contractual timelines of the plan here, because there's, depending on the loan package you have, It could be closing in 30 days. It could be closing in 45 days. Sometimes there's different possession times for when it's closing. So whatever your logistics are, I monitor that. I also monitor lender and title, giving you updates and making sure everyone's connected and making sure everyone's nudged along to stay on time. So basically, as things are happening, I let you know what's next. When it's time the week before to call for utilities, when it's we do a final walkthrough, which is another showing that's usually 1 to 4 days from closing, just to make sure everything legally is as it was at the time of closing. Make sure they didn't accidentally move out the fridge that was supposed to be staying, or there isn't some new weird hole in the wall that, whatever's going on. We just glance at the house again to make sure it's the same house you made the offer on. And then I also use that time to take our just sold photo. This is the goal. This is the culmination of all the paperwork and the headaches and the phone calls and everything that we're doing is to get to you holding this and smiling at the end and you get your keys. So this is my culmination. But anyways, so at the final walkthrough is it's usually right before the closing, but we take the picture and we sit on the picture until closing because we do not celebrate until it's closed. But we do gifts and, I throw champagne in the fridge so that when you do get the keys, you can have a little moment and celebrate at that time. So anyways, it's a fun process though. We enjoy it. And, some deals are easy and smooth and some deals, there's lots of back and forth, but whatever the case may be, you have that logistical support and that moral support from me. And the biggest thing for me is your understanding of everything that's taking place and your comfort level. So if you have questions, like no question is silly or stupid or too small. I work nights and weekends, and it's really important that we have a lender that works nights and weekends as well, because there are bankers that are just 9 to 5 people, and I hate when my clients end up working with them because we need somebody who's going to be always on our team in the same way that I am, and it's just really important that that's one of the biggest factors to me, is our communication level. But yeah, basically that's it. It's really, we don't need to make it more complicated than it is. We identify a property you want. I recommend the offer, and ultimately the decisions are yours. I'm a guide stone and a helper, and I make my recommendations and facilitate the paperwork. Negotiation is one of my strongest suits, and one of the things that is really a cornerstone of what I do for you, making sure that you have the absolute best deal that can be had. But there's 2 tiers to the deal. There's the financial tier of the deal, and there's the numbers pertaining to the house. So making sure that you're maximizing on both sides of that is really important to me. There's other factors too. Like obviously when somebody's a first time home buyer, a lot of times they're all in with everything they have for that first purchase. So maybe you're worried, what if the fridge breaks? I'm gonna be screwed. I'm not gonna have a fridge. All my money I put into this. So if you look in your folder, there's documentation about home warranties. Depending on the house and depending on the deal, if we know that a house has an older furnace, an older water tank, everything older, then maybe we would say we want this home warranty. That can be asked for the seller to cover, or it can be covered by you. There's also upgrades where you can add washer and dryer. You can add like a couple more years to it if you want to upgrade it. So typically in the old market, it was something that we would request the seller to pay. Now sometimes they pay it, sometimes the buyer pays it, but depending on the age of things, that's something that can give you that emotional insurance, saying like, I know nothing crazy is gonna rise in this 1 year where I literally just spent all my money. So stuff like that. In terms of other resources too, I have a vendor list that I share with my clients. Do you need a painter, a plumber, whoever? I have, especially in this neighborhood where I live, I have great resources. So one of the things that I tell my clients is I'm your realtor for life. I'm here for you forever. If you need somebody, I mean, I have people call me all the time. I sold houses 2 years ago. Hey, who's a good HVAC person? Da, da, da. I'm like, oh, these guys. So just having like a person that is your resource and like a comfort touchstone, like that's one of the things I really pride myself on. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, in your folders, behind your folders, you're gonna see this sheet. This is all of the current listings, there's some on the back too, that are active in West Park proper right now. If you want to expand out, West Park is really 44111 and 44135. But right now, this is the area 103, which is an MLS area that is CAMS and CAMS adjacent. So we can look at West Park in those two ways. Like the fringe of West Park, the western Cleveland, that also to me a lot of times can be called West Park, so depending on your opinions. So I also have a sheet here. I don't know what everybody's doing after this today, but anyone can come up here and take a photo of this sheet. This is 12 homes right now that are having open houses today and tomorrow this weekend in the West Park area. So if you guys are free after this, come grab a picture, and this is the open house schedule for this weekend for the neighborhood. I also, because like I said, not all realtors are created equal, I have some special extra resources that other agents may or may not have, including I have a list of properties that are coming soon that are not on the market yet, off-market properties, which is very hard to get and hot to have in this market. So as you can see, I've got 8 of them right now. 6 of them are going to be my listings, but 2 of them are just, I have a big network amongst other agents. I reached out and said, hey guys, I'm doing this thing. What do you have coming soon? So I wanted to tell you about some of these properties. So you've got that paperwork in here as well. Now, depending on your timeline, these may or may not be available, and the listings that I'm showing you today may or may not be available. Once you're actionable with your pre-approval, we're gonna address what's available to you within your budget, within your search requirements and criteria at that time. But these are just sweeping examples of stuff that I do. So you will receive an email from me with matches, a big one at first, which is everything that there is, and then as they pop on, you'll get individuals. And there will be a way for you to use, there's like a heart icon to save your favorites, and I can see on my end what you're saving, and that just makes it easier for us to market watch and track your favorites. And then you can watch too how quickly they're selling and having status change and what's going on. There's also a garbage can, like I said, edit heavily. Like if something's checking like most of your boxes but not all of your boxes, it's not a match. So, editing heavily through those listings and having a little patience. If there isn't something that we're loving yet, we need to let that happen. I mean, I can reach out through my channels for off-market stuff, but ultimately, we want to time things to where there's something that appears that you love. Okay, so everybody, did you fill out your yellow sheet? Name, phone number, email, about what you think you want in beds, baths, that kind of thing. And then most importantly, your time frame. When is your current lease ending? When are you hoping to move? I really like to start the process with you 90 days out. And it might be that we find a house on day 2. And it might be that we find a house in a month. One of the things, and I'm gonna check with Teresa here, but one of the things is that depending financial institution to financial institution, a lot of them, you don't make your first loan payment for 30 to 60 days. Is that correct?
It's the first day of the second month after closing.
The second month after closing, the first day of the second month after closing. So what that means, so you guys are used to paying rent every month. If you have this buffer of 2 months, that might help you with your moving costs. That might help with our timing if there's a little overlap between your old place. I mean, depending on your ability, to me, I think it's kind of nice to maybe have your old place for a pinch and not have to do a crazy one-day move. Maybe you can have a little overlap. Maybe you want to paint. Maybe you want, you know what I mean? So that buffer of that 2 months to not make your first payment is really helpful for a number of reasons, and it gives us cushion with our timing. Because being flexible, when we see the right one, we have to act on it, period. So that's kind of how we zhuzh all of that to make it work. Does anybody have any questions? So that's it.
I have a question. Curious question.
Please.
Curious. If there is, what's the average number of houses that your buyers look at before they find? I mean, that's a tough question.
So that's a tough question because everybody's so different. Mm-hmm. I have buyers that see 2 things or 1 thing, and they, it depends how much pre-vetting they're doing with the list before we actually get out into the world. Some people, there's actually a percentage that is, I believe, over 60% of people buy the first house they see. And there's people that are hesitant to buy, wait, should I buy this? I'm not doing my due diligence, the first house I see. But the reason why the first house you see is usually one of your favorites because of the pre-vetting you're doing with the research you're doing at home with the listings that I'm sending you. So there's that happens. But then there's people, it depends on your emotional readiness. It depends on, a lot of factors. So some people look for months. Some people, typically, most of the people I work with move a lot faster than that. Especially in the present couple years where the market is moving quickly. The whole I love this house, it's perfect for me, I'm just gonna sleep on it and write the offer in the morning is not acceptable in this market. If you love it, then we need to act, and if you're not sure, then it's not the one. That's how it's simplified by the crazy market.
Right. I just had a saying, it's when in doubt, don't.
Right, exactly right.
And,
if you don't feel that special feeling, and if you're not sure, and to be honest, a lot of times for these homes that end up in multiples, you need to go hard in your offer. And so if you need to love it to go hard in your offer. If you're like, nah, no, that's not the house for you. And if you're not sure, then we're gonna find something you're feeling better about. Anyways.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
For both of you, really. I don't know if anyone here is, as you're thinking about a home, if you'd be willing to maybe take on a fixer-upper or something that's a little more dated, just to save a little money on the purchase price, but knowing that you can make it what you want, right? Is there any guidance you give people who are maybe looking at houses like that, and also are there interesting loans?
We have renovation loans.
To fund those types of things after you buy it. Okay.
It depends on your budget. A lot of it comes down to budget. If you're looking at the starter home budget and you have a small budget, these homes are not going to be perfect, and they're not going to be your turnkey all the time. It depends on the level of risk and the level of work that you're willing to accept. It depends on your timeline, your realisticness about saying, maybe I'm going to be living in something that I'm working on for a couple years. I always tell my clients, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't need to have it fully decorated and furnished in the first week. It doesn't need to be completely renovated in the first year. We gradually, as you get some money and as you live and as you go, not only are you going to fix it up and make it yours, you're going to learn what you love along the process anyways. If you fix it up in 2 seconds, it might not even be, you might realize through living in it, I really would have rather had this. So I think doing things a pinch slower, there is actually a lot of benefit to it, but it depends on your starting budget. And it depends, some people, their work schedule is crazy. It's not going to be conducive to their lifestyle to be working on a fixer-upper. Or maybe they're super handy and they have hookups and their family's all in the trades or whatever the case. Everybody's different. So knowing yourself and knowing what makes sense for you, that's a decision that you have to make. But that being said, depending on what a home actually needs, you might be limited on your loan package if something is really in need of a lot of work or whatever, so that's something that we would assess case by case.
And in that case, in that situation, and let's say you wanted to put your 10% down, and in that case you found this house, you love it, but it needs paint, it needs carpet, it needs this. I am going to suggest you put less money down, and that way you are not going to be that disappointed, I really love this house, but it needs $5,000 right away. That's
so if that house is in multiples and we're fighting for it, I'm going to suggest you put down the most you have and figure out the cosmetics later, because if you don't get it, but if you're not
pre-approval at 10%
right,
down, by the way, to get the house, but
right, if you're not, well, we try to do what's on the contract, but if you're not able to get the house, it doesn't make a difference how ugly the carpet is. So, again, case by case, obviously it's great to make sure you have extra money reserved if you're doing a fixer-upper. I mean, that's essential. But, at this point in the market, getting the home that you identify that you want and how we get that is going to be paramount, and then you can figure out the rest over time. I think that's pretty much it for me. I have a gift box for you guys from my office. There's some first-time home buyer and just some sponges and samples and things like that. I've got some pens for you. There's paperwork in there as well, and some resources for some other stuff. And I would love to hear from all of you individually. I'm going to be taking your yellow sheets and sending you guys some listings and some resources. But I would love, call or text me anytime. I would love for you guys to follow me on social media or engage with me there. I'm really big on social media. So I have a Facebook, I have a business Facebook page, and then I'm on Instagram and YouTube. All right, thank you guys so much. Again, I applaud you for being here, taking the first steps to get information and build a plan. Whether your timeline's in 2 years, I mean, the way you color your spending between now and then and the way you prepare yourself, that is setting yourself up for success. So you guys are amazing. I hope to be working with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you hold that big key in the end. Thank you.